Teddy. Don't believe his lies. He is the one. Kill him. I finally found him. How long have I been looking?
Christopher Nolan's film Memento, an Academy Award-nominated screenplay, is a mystery drama that proved his talent as an up-and-coming director and solidified his place in Hollywood. The critically acclaimed screenplay was written by him and inspired by his younger brother Jonathan Nolan's short story. This 11-page short story named Memento Mori, derived from a Latin phrase that translates to "remember you must die" in English, centers around an amnesiac trying to find the man who killed and raped his wife. Both adaptations follow the same premise. However, it's important to note that they are not the same. The best way to describe Memento Mori is kind of as a thought experiment, a what-if scenario. It tinkers with the idea about making a story centered around an amnesiac, seeking revenge. However, by virtue of being a short story, it could only be so long, and therefore it left a lot up to imagination. Christopher Nolan's 2-hour filmic adaptation fills in these blanks.
Well, my brother told me the story verbally before he'd finished writing it, and the screenplay is an extrapolation of his basic idea, which I was fascinated by. And he told it to me while we were driving cross-country between Chicago and Los Angeles.
Within the filmic adaptation of Memento, there are 5 main characters. Leonard, played by Guy Pearce. Before the story begins, 2 home invaders sneak into Leonard's home one night, where his wife is raped and murdered in front of his eyes. Leonard swiftly shoots one of the attackers. However, following this, the other attacker sneaks up behind Leonard and throws him into a mirror, which causes Leonard to experience significant brain damage and gain anterograde amnesia. He cannot form any new memories. He's able to retain all his memories prior to the assault, however, he can't learn any new information. Every 15 minutes, sometimes less in stressful situations, Leonard starts from square one and can't remember anything. To ensure that he's able to get justice for his wife's murder, Leonard uses tattoos, photos, and notes to keep himself informed. These notes Leonard leaves himself dictates his whole life, who he trusts, where he goes, and even who he is targeting.
He killed my wife. He took away my fucking memory. He destroyed my ability to live.
Well, then we'll get the bastard.
Teddy, played by Joe Pantoliano, a police officer who helps Leonard track down his wife's killer.
You living?
Natalie Corrie Ann Moss. She is a bartender who is dating a drug dealer, Jimmy Grant, who has gone missing. She suspects that Jimmy is dead, but she helps Leonard in hopes of finding the man who she believes killed her missing boyfriend. Sammy Jankis, a man who has the same condition as Leonard. Sammy's disease is allegedly due to something psychological and nothing physical, different than Leonard, which is definitely worth noting. Miss Jankis, played by Harriet Sampson Harris. She's the diabetic wife of Sammy Jankis.
The story is basically told backwards. It's basically told as a series of flashbacks that go further and further back in time.
Memento is widely known for unconventional storytelling and its scrambled, non-linear timeline. Nolan forces watchers to live vicariously through the perspective of Leonard, a person unable to form new memories. To achieve this, Nolan splits the film into 2 separate timelines that contrast in the way the shots are color-corrected and temporally sequenced. Colored scenes within the movie move backwards in chronological order. They are also subjective. Viewers share Leonard's lack of information and hear his thoughts as he traverses through the story. In the color sequence of the film, we spend much of our time experiencing the world from Leonard's perspective.
Well, that's the thing. I have this condition.
A condition?
It's my memories.
The camera follows him around the world, and we piece together details and information about his wife's murder as he receives them. Seeing the world from Leonard's eyes, Nolan presents viewers with a biased perspective of the world. This genius creative choice forces viewers alongside Leonard as he questions what is happening, where he is, and how he got there. Black and white shots serve as the antithesis to the colored shots. They move forward chronologically in time and present viewers with a perspective that is supposedly objective. These black and white shots share a lot of similarities to shots in the film noir genre, French for black film. These commonalities are low-key lighting and unbalanced compositions that have roots in German expressionist cinematography. These dark shots bring viewers discomfort and raise tension in the story. Within the film noir genre, there is a common theme of there being an unreliable protagonist, something that hints to Leonard not being as reliable a narrator as he presents himself. Eventually, the 2 sequences meet at the end of the film, producing one complete and cohesive narrative. Within Memento, Nolan attempts to use natural lighting within scenes as exclusively as he can. This creative choice brings a feeling of realism to the movie that many heavily produced films and color-corrected films lack. Here, Leonard is situated outdoors with the sun positioned behind him to the right, creating a natural lighting effect that causes the picture he is holding forward to cast a subtle shadow, thereby impeding a clear view of the image. A recurring theme in the movie is the ambiguity surrounding the pictures Leonard relies on, a technique employed by Nolan through the use of inadequate or obscured lighting when examining the photos or the subjects within the photos themselves. Additionally, many of the photos exhibit a grainy quality, a characteristic attributed to the use of a Polaroid camera. Personally, I think the usage of natural lighting is most impressive in black and white scenes. In many of the scenes in the motel room, the lighting from the sun, combined with the black and white overlay, couples to effectively illuminate and place emphasis on Leonard's face, which contrasts the dark environment surrounding him. The heavy shadows add a layer of drama to black and white shots that really help create the unsettling, mysterious environment Nolan is attempting to create. Nolan's artistic choice of telling the story in a non-linear fashion leaves viewers with a convoluted and heavily biased perspective that misrepresents reality. However, this is intentional. Leonard being an unreliable narrator allows Nolan to reflect a truth about the human mind. Memory is not reality. Whether unintentional or intentional, we as human beings often misconstruct the truth and remember things in a way that makes us feel better about ourselves, events, or our own actions. In the black and white scenes, we observe Leonard seated in a motel room, unraveling a situation and providing crucial insight that is absent in the colored scenes. Throughout these exposés, Leonard primarily explores the story of Sammy Jenkins. In his early days as an insurance investigator, Leonard encountered Sammy, and his assignment involved determining whether Sammy's memory issues were due to a physical or mental nature. This assessment was pivotal in deciding whether insurance would cover the costs associated with Sammy's condition. As Leonard conducted various tests, researchers hypothesized that Sammy's inability to form new memories was a product of his own mind. Tragically, this realization caused Sammy's diabetic wife to lose her will to live. In a desperate attempt to gauge Sammy's ability to break free from this condition, she devised a cruel experiment. She repeatedly tasked Sammy with administering her insulin shots, pushing him to the brink where a failure to remember previous administrations would lead to a fatal, deadly overdose. Approaching the film's ending, which is actually its beginning in chronological order, Leonard finally kills John G., the man he suspects killed his wife. However, on the cusp of death, the man whispers out the name Sammy, which signals to Leonard that they have met before. Teddy then confesses to Leonard the man who just died was not his wife's killer, but rather Natalie's ex-boyfriend, Jimmy Grant's. Teddy admits to Leonard that as an off-duty police officer, he has been manipulating Leonard to kill criminals through taking advantage of his condition and feeding him clues. This way, he stays innocent. He also claims that Leonard's wife survived the attack. Then, we reach the film's largest reveal.
So you lie to yourself to be happy. There's nothing wrong with that. We all do it. Who cares if there's a few little details you'd rather not remember?
It's Sammy, not me. I told you about Sammy.
Yeah, right. Sammy didn't have a wife. It was your wife who had diabetes.
Ouch.
My wife wasn't diabetic.
You sure?
This leads us to confront the film's most prominent themes: manipulation, memory, and guilt. Throughout the film, we see countless other examples of people attempting to manipulate Leonard. For instance, Teddy constantly tries to steal Leonard's car.
My car.
This is your car.
Oh, you're in a playful mood.
Roll up your window.
Republican rhetoric about taxes.
It's broken.
I can get that fixed for you. A car this nice, you should lock. It's not safe for you to hang around here anymore.
Why not?
Because the cop's looking for you. Now I gotta get you a new identity, some new clothes, a different car would do for now.
The motel is secretly renting out 2 rooms to Leonard.
This was your room, but now you're in 304.
When was I in here?
Last week. But then I rented you another room on top of it.
Why?
Business is slow. I mean, I told my boss about your condition and stuff, and he said try and rent him another room.
So how many rooms am I checked into in this shithole?
Just 2. So far.
Well,
At least you're being honest about ripping me off.
Well, you're not going to remember anyway.
And Natalie baits Leonard into hitting her so she can manipulate him into killing somebody else.
That freak. I can say whatever the fuck I want. And you won't remember. We'll still be best friends. Or maybe even lovers. I'll see you soon.
Come on, I gotta find a pen. I gotta find a pen.
What happened?
What does it look like? He beat the shit out of me.
Who?
Who?
However, surprisingly, the person who manipulates Leonard the most is himself. After we find out the big reveal that Teddy has been manipulating Leonard to kill criminals, that Leonard's wife survived the attack, and that the duo already found and killed the home invader, Leonard quickly rushes outside and writes down Teddy's license plate to later have it tattooed on him. It's definitely true that there's no way of knowing for sure whether Teddy is actually telling the truth about all these facts. After all, it goes against everything Leonard has told the viewers so far. However, through rewatching certain parts of the story, Nolan hints that Leonard has unintentionally been manipulating himself from the beginning, and that there actually might be a lot of truth to everything that Teddy is saying. For starters, in a scene where Leonard discusses Sammy being institutionalized after his wife's sickening test, if you slow down the shot just enough, we can see Leonard switch places with Sammy in the institution. This visual cue hints at the malleability of Leonard's own perceptions and memories, raising doubts about the accuracy of pretty much all his recollections. Another really compelling example lies in the scene where Leonard strangles Jimmy. The film employs quick cuts that transition to images of Leonard's wife, whom he claims was murdered through asphyxiation. As Jimmy succumbs to the strangulation, the film abruptly cuts to images of Leonard's wife's face covered in plastic. The juxtaposition implies a connection between Leonard's actions and the haunting memories of his wife's demise, and it kind of reinforces this idea that he at least has to have some role in the death of his wife. These subtle cues Nolan embeds in the film are intentional. He's explicitly inviting consumers of his work to question Leonard's reliability as a narrator. And as I mentioned earlier, he's been doing this from the beginning. It's no coincidence black and white shots are reminiscent to the film noir genre. Taking these two shots into consideration, it becomes increasingly plausible that Teddy is actually revealing the truth, and Leonard, in turn, exploits his own condition by selectively choosing what to remember and what to forget. Leonard even goes a step further by manipulating the only memories he has access to, those from before the incident. This self-manipulation becomes apparent when examining Leonard's decision to engage with a sex worker for a night. In particular, in this instance, Leonard employs a psychological technique known as conditioning to manipulate his memories. The purpose of hiring this sex worker is to have her play the role of his former wife. By reenacting the night when intruders invaded their home, Leonard intentionally interweaves fresh encounters with past events, distorting his recollections and effectively erasing the acknowledgement that his wife was diabetic, which again leads me to believe that her diabetes, or if she had diabetes, that it had some correlation to her death. This action appears to be a deliberate attempt to absolve himself of the guilt associated with inadvertently causing his wife's death. Following this line of reasoning, it can be argued that the subsequent switch between Leonard and Sammy within the institutional setting is a direct consequence of these altered realities. Rather than acknowledging his dark past, Leonard projected his life onto Sammy Jenkins, and therefore Sammy and Leonard are synonymous. Leonard's choice to write down Teddy's license and get revenge, effectively putting him in Leonard's future crosshairs, shows us that Leonard's main goal has never been to find his wife's killer. For him, ignorance is bliss. It is easier to murder and continue this fake journey of revenge than to lose his life purpose and live with guilt. The film wraps up with Leonard heading to the tattoo parlor, lost in his thoughts of being with his wife. Notably, he reveals a new tattoo on his chest while daydreaming, declaring, "I've done it." This phrase holds a variety of meanings. Leonard admitting to the killing of his wife, acknowledging his self-manipulation, but more importantly, it hints at an alternative future where he could walk away from violence and break this cycle of ignorance. The film's closure outside the tattoo parlor might initially seem open to interpretation, but the non-chronological structure reveals that the first scene in the whole movie is indeed the ending, depicting Leonard shooting Teddy. This ending, or beginning, it's confusing, prompts viewers to reflect on the everyday choices people make to misconstruct the truth, avoid admitting that they did something wrong, or sidestep the difficult but necessary act of just offering an apology. Memento, therefore, kind of serves as a thought-provoking exploration of the human inclination to grapple with complexities of memory, accountability, and the challenging journey towards self-awareness. Most importantly, though, I think Memento serves as a thought-provoking exploration of the reliability of memory, how we use it to kind of circumvent accountability, and how we need to start questioning our own biases. We shouldn't always see ourselves in the right, and that true growth occurs from looking at things from an objective perspective, taking responsibility, and acknowledging that in our own heads, we can all sometimes be unreliable narrators.